It was a big night for English teams in Europe this week. Aston Villa stormed into the semi-finals of the Europa League with an emphatic 4-0 win over Bologna to give them a 7-1 win on aggregate. Their progression means that their game against Tottenham Hotspur will now be moved to Sunday the 3rd of May, which is a day after we play Brentford. If we get a positive result in our next three games against Crystal Palace, Everton and Brentford, then the game for Spurs, that particular game for Spurs being moved by another day, will be even more of a challenge for them in a psychological way, to have to play a day later knowing all the results, or certainly knowing our results. Nottingham Forest also progressed. Despite not doing so well in the Premier League, they're doing really well in Europe. They also got into the semi-finals of the Europa League with a 1-0 win at home to Porto, which led to a 2-1 win on aggregate. And now both Premier League teams will face each other in the semi-final. Now, a win in Europe will certainly give Nottingham Forest a massive boost for their Premier League survival. But meanwhile, in the Europa Conference League, another English team did extremely well. And Crystal Palace got through to the last four of that competition by beating Fiorentina 4-2 on aggregate, even though they lost their game on Thursday night by 2-1. And they face Shakhtar Donetsk in the last four. Now, why am I talking about teams in Europe when we should only focus about West Ham? Well, all these games could have an impact on what happens in the relegation fights in the remaining 6 games of the season. Look, as much as progressing in a cup competition is fantastic, I'll never forget our 3 years in Europe. It does sometimes come with its complications, as Forest and Palace have found to their cost. Now, for Forest, it's the 2 additional games in the semi-final, which got to be played in between a complex Premier League run-in. Not so great if it's going to be for their league position if they having to play more games. The first of their 2 legs against Aston Villa takes place in between 2 away visits in the Premier League. In a few weeks' time, they travel to Sunderland, then they play Villa in the semi-final, and then they got to travel to Chelsea a few days later. Then their second leg is sandwiched in between that Chelsea game away and then their home game at home to Newcastle. That's going to be a grueling fixture scenario for Nottingham Forest. And as much as their fans are going to be delighted with reaching the semi-finals of that competition, they must also be a little bit apprehensive as to whether it's going to impact on their chances for Premier League survival. Forest currently on 33 points in 16th position, but it's only 3 points ahead of 18th place Tottenham Hotspur. Their next league game is against Burnley this Sunday, and they're going to have to hope for a 3-point cushion, in order to keep them away from that 18th Premier League spot. However, they're likely to have to do this with 3 players missing after picking up injuries in that quarter-final against Porto. Defender Murillo and striker Chris Wood both had to come off because of injury, with Vitor Pereira suggesting that both players had minor knocks and that they should be available for the crucial 6-pointer against Burnley this coming weekend. I guess we'll see whether that materialises or not. But winger Callum Hudson-Odoi was seen leaving the stadium on crutches, which suggests that his injury is a bit longer term. But as for West Ham, we have the important game coming up on Monday night against Crystal Palace. And just like Forest, Palace have picked up injuries in their game against Fiorentina on Thursday night. We've heard that England international Adam Wharton has picked up an abductor injury. And Maxence Lacroix also went off in the first half. Now, Wharton's abductor injury, even the mildest of injuries is likely to take a couple of weeks to recover from. So it's not serious long term, but it'll certainly mean that he's likely to miss out on the game against West Ham this coming Monday night. Lacroix got a painful blow to the knee. And judging by Oliver Glasner's pre-match press conference on Friday, Lacroix might just not make the game on Monday night. Now, Glasner wouldn't be dragged into revealing whether the withdrawal of Jean-Philippe Mateta at half-time was tactical or as a result of another injury. But if Mateta is also out injured, that's going to be quite crucial for Glasner and for Crystal Palace on Monday night. It would be a severe blow to Crystal Palace attacking threat. Palace were already missing Evan Gassand to injury, so this is not going to help their cause at all. Now, Oliver Glasner on Thursday night pulled out all the big guns against Fiorentina to ensure that they got the win that they needed. But, you know, he talked about the players that stepped in for all the injured players, Jefferson Lima, Shadi Riyad, and Jorgen Strand Larsen. You know, he praised them for coming in to replace the players that went off. Look, Crystal Palace, they're not in danger of relegation. They're on 42 points, so at least they don't have to worry about that. But it is about the injuries and going into this game that may be a concern, not only for Palace, but, you know, if we can take advantage of that, a massive concern for our relegation rivals. Glasner, he usually adopts a 3-4-2-1 system, which Lacroix, Wharton, and Mateta play an important part of. Wharton is usually the player that drops deep to pick up the ball from the goalie or from the centre-backs to initiate attacking play. So that will be missing on Monday night. And perhaps West Ham can take advantage of that by applying pressure on their centre-backs much higher up the pitch. If we nullify Palace's play from deep, then that also nullifies their use, or it hinders their use of their wing-backs, who are going to have to probably defend more than going into attack. As for West Ham, well, we've got a clean bill of health, and all the players are available to Nuno for this game on Monday. Now, I'm uncertain whether he's going to make any changes to the starting lineup, to the one that beat Wolves 4-0. But there might be one call-up, and that could be the return of Aaron Wan-Bissaka. I've got a feeling that possibly Wan-Bissaka might step back into the lineup. But I'm not so sure he'll step back in as right back, because Carl Walker-Peters, he actually played pretty well in that game against Wolves on Friday last week. If anything, it could be that Aaron Wan-Bissaka comes in as a replacement for Malik Diouf, who, let's be honest, didn't have the best of games against Wolves. Even though we won that game, even though we did well, he didn't have the best of games. And Diouf is going to be up against much stronger opposition in the likes of Ismail Assar, who has scored 17 goals for Crystal Palace in all competitions so far this season. That's no mean feat. That's a pretty good achievement. 7 of those goals have been in the Premier League. Now, I think Malik often gets caught napping at times, and a player like Sarr, with his pace and ability, could prove to be a little bit too much for Malik on Monday night. So even though Crystal Palace might have certain players missing, you know, the fact that Malik just loses concentration every now and again is a cause for concern. Nuno's got other alternatives as left back. He could bring in Ezra Myers or Ollie Scarles, but I just don't know in this important game whether they're going to get the nod. So my gut feeling could be that there could be one change. Look, of the options available to Nuno, I'd like to see Wan-Bissaka on the left, because it not only will occupy Palace's wing backs, but it will also occupy Ismail Assar, and he'll be expected to drop deeper to help with our attack down that side. Imagine Wan-Bissaka and Somerville with their pace and trickery could be a real problem for Crystal Palace on Monday night. Look, our recent performances against Palace have not been great. In the last 8 games, we've won 2, we've drawn 1, and we've lost 5. But our last win against them was at their ground back in August 2024, when Jared Bowen and Thomas Soucek scored the 2 goals for a 2-0 win. Now, the last games, however, against them resulted in 2-0 and 2-1 defeats, both under the management of Graham Potter. We're a very, very different team to the team that Potter had back then. Yeah, most of the players are the same, but the approach is completely different now. We're going to rely, if he plays, we're going to have to rely on keeping Mateta quiet in our game on Monday. He scored 3 goals in our last 2 games against us. And that's the key. We have to press from the front. And as I've said, If Wharton is missing, by the looks of it, he will be. We may be able to do that more easily. But we've got Disasi and we've got Dinos in defence now, who will ensure that our defence is tighter to keep the likes of Mateta and Sarr a little bit at bay. So here's my team lineup for Monday night. Hermansen has nailed his place now as goalkeeper. I'm not going to go into, should he or should Areola be our number one? It's been decided, and that's that. My feeling is there could be one change, as I've mentioned. Kyle Walker-Peters will keep his place on the right, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka, I think, will step in place of Malik Diouf. And then Dinos and Disasi as centre-backs, unfortunately keeping Todibo still on the bench. And then Souček and Fernandes will control the midfield, whilst the three behind the striker being Bowen, Pablo and Somerville, with Tati Castellanos leading the line up front. Look, prediction, it's a difficult one, but I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to West Ham United. It's a statement if we do that. Look, we've got to look out for what the results are going to be this weekend. We could start the game in the bottom three if Tottenham Hotspur beat Brighton. We could start the game again in the bottom three, but that shouldn't matter. We know what we've got to do. We know what we've got to go and get done. And I've got a feeling that this might just be our game on Monday. If we can get a 2-1 win, that takes us back up over Spurs if they win their game. If they don't win their game, it might give us an even bigger gap between us and them going into the final 5 games of the season. So a 2-1 win for me. But do let me know what you think. Are we going to win this game? Are we going to lose? Is it going to be a draw? And what would your lineup be? By the way, if you've yet to do so, if you've yet to become a subscriber to the channel, QR code has appeared in the top corner there. Please click on that. Become a subscriber, free of charge. Doesn't cost anything to subscribe to the channel. If you enjoy the content, hit the like button, hit the bell notification to let you know when the next show is on. And you could also hit the hype button, which allows you to promote this particular video to other viewers on YouTube. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Let's see how it's going to go on Monday night. Of course, I'll be there, and I'll do a post-match review of the game afterwards. Thank you for watching and listening, and I'll see you all soon.